let's see, this is the pasta I made, plain. I'm going to use a takeover, the sauce, which is disgusting curry, to go in there. It was Bombay potato. Yeah. So with this camera, I don't have to mention the date. It already says the date. Doing apple. Yeah. So it already says the date. I don't have to say it. Look at all the mess and the paperwork I've got to do. All this paper rubbish I've got to throw away. And the enemy calls me. They wouldn't like it done to them. No help. And the only help that's offered has third parties, invaders, control freaks. So God's people in this video, long video, is not about controlling strangers and enemies. It is about limiting strangers and enemies. Unless, of course, I had a job with skilled role, employment, education, qualification, to punish, to discipline. So all God's people are named priests and priestesses and have this important role, which is very serious, for physically and spiritually, to discipline and control, damage control, what the enemy and strangers have done, in the role of a police officer or a judge or an executioner. So the right government or the conservative government, according to God's laws, are too soft as priests, priestesses, in the religious fact, in a relationship with God, and in acknowledging that God is the boss. These three matters as God's people. So they have a job which is professional, even if they haven't been qualified by materialistic measure, by the worldly standards. They are qualified by God's standards and God's qualification to make them employed as judges, police officers, executionists, jailers, and guards against the wicked, wrongful, criminals. We have that role. Even executioners. So false Christians and demons and people that do not fight demons, limit demons, and even execute demons cannot call themselves Christians because they are not fulfilling these roles. God sent us to have an academic assignment. That means write your own journal, do a lot of writing if you can, do a lot of reading if you can, do a lot of studying for achieving qualifications for God's standards, not world standards. Both, you can do both, but God's standards are more important than the academic standards of qualifications. They're both important. However, God's education is more important than the secular education, in my view. And it's so very bad that poor people can't afford it. Private education where we do Christian studies only, and it's very unfair and wrong. So therefore, God, through the God Spirit, which I have over here, which I'm going to mention in this video, gives us, God's people who are poor, the capacity to study and to do all these spiritual studies, writing, reading, and also physical ability. But if I'm disabled and I cannot fight or execute the criminal, God will help me find someone who can. So I pass on my spiritual weapon and physical weapon over to you, over to you, over to you. All those people who want to receive the discernment, the education, the qualification, and the equipment to punish the wicked, pursue the wicked, put them in prison, and even execute them. So I'm not soft on them. So I have consulted God in my Holy Bible, which is the NIV version. I love this little book that I've had for many years. And as it's Christmas coming, I wanted to find out about this GP, because I had been suffering at the hand of not Pakistani, but a lot of them are bad because they do group sex and perverted things. But the ones that are very bad are the very rich Indians. They have bad blood, the same as gypsies, and the same as very bad Jews and gypsies. So they are, even their clothing, touching them, is all corrupted because of their spirit. It is supposed to be the spirit that dominates and limits the flesh, not the flesh that dominates and limits the spirit, for Christians. For non-Christians in the secular world, it's the other way around. It is the flesh, the carnal, that dominates the spirit. So, and also, that's what I want people to realize, what it means to be a Christian and what duties they have. And God trusts you with little things, therefore God wants you to be trusted with big things. And so when you get politicians and lawyers and principalities who are not Christians, and judges and teachers, just put this away, keep the dust off, who are too soft on criminals, overcrowding prison systems, do not execute main criminals who are perverting courts of justice, obscuring courts of justice, doing all types of wrongs, wickedness, and it's so bad. They've even protected the word EVIL. I have to spell it, I can't say it. They can censor you, as they did with Sky, broadband provider, that because of no reason, out of the blue, she wanted to terminate my account because of some accusation that I was rude to one of her members of staff. So it's overprotection, it's overvaluing. In my poor circumstance and disabled status, she suddenly said, I'm going to terminate your account. And because I retaliated by my word and called her EVIL, she then suddenly put me into the worst department for people who are in trouble with authorities. Because I used that word, she was offended that I defended myself, and I was offended. So she said I wasn't allowed to have the confidence to have self-defense, to be offended and defend myself because of my poverty and my disability, which is persecution of Christians, which is also damnation. It's also discrimination and all the negatives. So she's a bad leader. So I said, this is the reason why I called you IVIL. My anger is reasonable and just. Your anger is unreasonable and unjust. So I scrutinized her, I rebuked her. I had every right to be angry for the disservice, which was deliberately overseen by someone who is up top, very big, very major. That means they could murder me and get away with it. So they spiritually murdered me and got away with it, and physically murdered me and got away with it. But there's two types of murder. There's two types of destructions. So it could be where they spill the blood, or it could be where they ruin your reputation, which is as bad. So emotional abuse is as bad as physical abuse. So they have wanted to spill my blood, in blood of the innocent, which is satanic, by using criminals, using stalkers, using hostile environments, creating every type of evil to spill the blood of the innocent, or to demonize the innocent, demoralize the innocent, discriminate the innocent, make a condemnation against the innocent, as in my case, for decades. And I'm getting this from Sky broadband provider. I'm also getting this from BT broadband provider, where these disgusting and despicable bad authorities have come up against me as total strangers and total demons to remove my blessings from God, to remove my safety net and my protections on the internet. So they've done this ever since I started using the social media to silence me and to threaten me. Both reputation-wise, there's a smear campaign, which is emotional abuse, which is as bad as physical abuse. So they've abused me in such an offensive way that I can't, insulting my intelligence. I can't retaliate. I can't have self-defense. I can't be offended and defend myself because of the poverty status, because of my authenticity, and because of my authority in Christ. They don't like any of these things. And so the fact that I'm alive, the fact that I make any progress or success, it offends them, and they have to be defensive, or overvalued, which is disgusting, coming from a demon-possessed individual who wants to possess me and obsess me. Because if I'm not one of them, then I'm against them. And I'm saying, why should I be a demon? I don't want to be a demon. I don't want to think like them. I don't want to behave like them. I don't want to look like them. I don't want to enjoy what they enjoy in the way they think. I want to have my own thoughts, my own independence, my own civil rights, my own human rights, my own confidence, my own body, my own mind, my own children. But they've come up against that because they believe something opposite from what I believe. And so they're offended, and they want to defend themselves against my existence, against my freedoms of speech and my freedoms in Christ. So this is the battle between good and evil. And the fact that I've mentioned this word, they want to censor me, they want to block my online accounts, which is what they've done successfully with Sky Broadband Media. They've plotted and schemed bad slave masters and bad leaders to force me, against my will, to have an account which is similar to what criminals have, or what people have, or bad people have, against authorities. Now, what they're planning to do with this New World Order is to make bad authorities seem to be the good guys, and the good authorities seem to be the bad guys. And I have a problem with this, because I want to offend and defend myself against bad leaders and bad authorities. They don't have the same principle, they don't have the same measure or the same discipline against the wicked and the wrongful. So I've mentioned Sky Media and BT Internet broadband provider that I've used for years, that have attacked my privacy, forced me to be into a wrong type of disservicing accounts, listened to my private telephone conversations, violated my right to privacy under Article 8 law, the right to have a private life. They removed that through the telephone, through banking. Obviously, I have to phone the bank, or for the internet use, or for having a broadband facility, internet. It's all about them, and it's nothing about God's people and God's authority. So they've enabled criminals and every type of evil to dominate and rule our society at large. So as it's Christmas coming, going back to the subject of my new GP, I'm not going to talk about the old GP. I'm going to talk about the new GP that I've registered, and I've automatically or systemically had been generated an Indian doctor or Pakistani or whatever he is. And I'm thinking, oh no, here we go again. They say I look Arab. I don't look Arab. I look Italian, European. And here we go again, Arab or some Indian. I hate them. Oh, every part of my body screams against them. They remind me of my father's DNA. Which I was told recently that he has a little bit of gypsy in him mixed with Serbian, which is part of Indian or Arab, some type of Arab or mixed with Indian. And I hate them so much because they're evil. Does that make me racist? No, it doesn't make me racist, because it is the way they behave. It's because they have such horrible spicy foods. They have bad body odors, and they speak too fast. They are too aggressive, and they are too selfish, and too nasty, unfriendly, no manners. So it's the same for blacks and yellows, Asian and Arab or Indian. Oh, so annoying. It's like doing a poo in the toilet. That's how annoying they are. So it's not really about skin color. It's about the DNA. It's the way they behave. It's the way they're so undisciplined, unruly, lawless. So lawlessness demon is much worse, 10 times worse, compared to the Antichrist, who is maybe has 2 demons or 4 demons or 6 demons. But the other one, which is the lawless criminal, has a lot more demons. That's what I have experienced through my own DNA. So racism has nothing to do with it. Although God is racist to the racist. It's more about, so they're saying, well, racism is in the category of DNA. And you can't categorically call it racism because you can't see it. You can't see the behavior. So they have this thought crime created by corrupt police that they can guess or stereotype you how you're going to behave before you even behave. So it's a new type, it's a modern type of racism through the DNA or through your culture. So then they want cancel culture. So first of all, I guessed it was right, coming from the right government, but I'm mistaken, it's coming from the left government that does this cancel culture. And also this modern type of racism, which is based on your DNA, your behavior. And if you're softly spoken or if you're shouting, that also comes into the racism category. So the problem with it's a lot deeper than the basic racism of the skin color and the hair color, the eye color, the nose shape. It's a lot deeper than that with the DNA, because the behavior obviously has consequences and they can incriminate the innocent. because of this black and white thinking which they have forced into surveillance. So the camera can look at you and your features. If you're dark-haired and dark eyes, you're then categorized as Asian, Indian, or Arab. And then they can instantly put you in this tunnel vision, which is black and white thinking, that has consequences attached to it. So they put behaviors on you through the surveillance system that you have never performed, you have never had this type of behavior, but you're forced to by the system, which is systemic abuse, and you have consequences for that behavior that you have never committed. So it's incriminating the way you look like, added to the way you look like, your DNA, your culture background, that you're most likely going to have group sex, you're most likely going to get drunk, you're most likely going to cause street violence, riots, and civil unrest, not only because of the way you look like, but because of the DNA and culture, so where you come from. And so it goes a lot deeper than that. They are merging the two. They're combining the two. So then that's tyranny. It's a new modern type of slave mastery and systemic abuse, which goes a lot deeper than your basic race. It looks at your culture and it looks at programmed behavior, so thought crime. And it annoys me so much because I'm saying, well, I have resisted this devil, I have fought this devil, I have limited this devil all my life. Even my skin being so thin compared to my father's skin being so thick. When I was tortured, I had these horrible hairs on me, which remind me of him. He was so coarse and rough. My mum was so soft and thin-skinned. And I'm having to have this double penetration, this double stimulation of this devil man who was a type of a mixed race, and his behavior of a brute, someone someone that Hitler hates. Hitler hates the lazy, the weak, the lazy. But he wasn't lazy; he was hardworking. However, his appearance looks like someone who is always feeling sorry for himself, who's always picking his nose and doing, he has this horrible nose, and everything about him makes me feel he's not my dad. He's never paid me a penny. He's never emotionally or physically supported me or protected me. He's not my dad, even though he lost his virginity to my mum and made me, both of them. Even though that seems to be pure, it's not pure because the two races are being mixed. The two cultures are being mixed. And all my life I resisted it. I hate the gypsy music. I hate the Indian music. I hate, because it reminds me of rape, robbery, and lawlessness. I don't like their behavior. It's evil. Neither do I like my mother's behavior, which is the white culture, which is like a evil type of superiority, evil type of supremacy, evil type of I'm better than you, not the holy type, evil type of snobbery, slutty, hate. So all my life I've been hating these demons, hating evil, fighting these demons, limiting them. And I'm overpowered continuously because of the corrupt authorities. There's not enough good leaders. And they're embracing each other now. I've criticized the left for cancel culture. And I'm going to criticize the right for the fact that they are too soft and they cannot call themselves Christians because they are allowing these bad criminals who deserve a death sentence to get away, or to have their innocent wives of the men who have committed these crimes to be punished, and for the innocent wives to have a divorce. I didn't want to have a divorce, but I had no choice because of domestic abuse and his child abuse that I was punished for. So that's the unlawful authorities and the too soft right government that says that they're behaving now as Christ and as God. That's fine. You can impersonate God all you like, but if, however, you bless yourself, you are no Christian. You have to wait for God to bless you and to anoint you and to say that you are like in the likeness, in the character of God and in the character of Christ. That God blesses you, as in my case, not because I've blessed myself, and I've said to the criminal who has stolen some ice cream, for example, to let him off, hoodwink him, and pay the penalty for his crime. I am now taking the role and the characteristic of Christ. No, that's wrong. Christ did not do that anyway. When Christ came to pay for my sin and my crimes against humanity, or my crimes against any other crimes I've done, because I'm also guilty of witchcraft. When I took family planning full protection, I killed my babies for 4 years. It was 100% destroying my pregnancies. And so it's God's will for women to have children, not to be limited by the devils, to have big families. But again, the bad authority comes along through the government and says you only limit to 1 child. There's plenty of room in the world for women to have lots of children. It's the government that's limiting us. It's these demons and the bad demons in the government that's limiting families. It's putting innocent men in prison. It's putting innocent women to be tortured for their husbands' crimes. It's turning men to go mad because the wicked are blessing themselves, and the false Christians are also blessing themselves and not punishing or disciplining the criminals and executing the criminals. So there's, on YouTube, for example, there's this politician called Rupert. Is it Rupert? Oh my God. He is part of the Reform Party, and he does not believe in execution. So that means if I was to vote, I would probably vote for the Tories, because the Tories party does want to reintroduce execution of criminals who have murdered and war criminals. So it clearly says that what goes around comes around. It clearly says this is God's law against the demons. So they're doing God's will as leaders to make sure that the prisons are not overcrowded. You must execute the murderers, the big criminals, not the rapists and the robbers, not that type of criminal. I mean the big criminals, such as the murderers and the genocidal, selfish, spoiled brats who are never limited, who are never disciplined, and who are murdering innocent people. So they're murdering innocent people, they're having war crimes, they're being promoted and protected because of the fear factor on the masses, on the majority. Individuals whose names I don't want to even mention, because I shouldn't have to mention them. It's not my job role or my qualification through the world system. However, it is my job role and my qualification and my profession through God's system and God's power. It is God's will to apply a death sentence on them. So God decides whether they live or die. So it's twofold. In this criminal justice system, it's twofold. So one half of it is to discipline and punish the perpetrators of every type of crime, major and minor. The other type is to execute those who have spilled innocent blood, such as war criminals and genocidal maniacs and lunatics. So that's why it's twofold. It's twofold, the criminal justice system. And so God can use anyone who wants to do God's will. Anyone who wants to do God's will, God can use. However, God is not going to use witches, wizards, and monsters. That's offending God. That's offensive to God. That is actually offending God. It's insulting God when you're saying God is going to use the monster to destroy a monster. God is going to use a witch to destroy a witch. God is going to use a wizard to destroy a wizard. No. God is saying that good is bad and bad is good. No. God is going to convert, change and rearrange someone who was a baddie to be a good guy, disguised as the bad guy, to destroy the actual bad guy. That's how it works. It's not a monster destroying a monster. It is a convert. And even the converts are disciplined and limited by God. So if they come from the night as night creatures, they will remain in the night until they are cleansed and purified and become even basic saints. If they come from the day, also they must be cleansed and purified, because there are many. The majority of human beings are as angels, but they are demons in disguise. Many of them are. Many of them are. They look like an angel, but they are masquerading as the good guys when in fact they're the bad guys. See? So it's very, very difficult, particularly in the modern society, to know the difference between good and bad guys because of the criminal justice system, total destruction, and total cancel culture, where the left government is guilty of, and the right government is also guilty, even more guilty than the left, because they are too soft on criminals. Criminals are promoted, protected, and even purchased to commit crimes. So therefore, if criminals have weapons and guns, therefore everybody should have weapons and guns, even children, because even children are being sexually abused or molested in their own homes. They don't feel safe. They should have some type of alarm system or surveilling system of their choice in their own homes, which is a weapon or anything else they can weaponize, since the children and the most vulnerable are being unfairly attacked from every side. So since the bad guy can have all these weapons, good guys also need it. Because they're removing the weapons, I've noticed, for people who have been tortured under mental health or any other systemic abuse, where innocent have been tortured, they have become even more vulnerable and even more unable to have a weapon, self-defense, offense, and defense. I've noticed that. So I'm educating myself through their advertisement, through their education system, through their entertainment system. I'm educating myself what the world system is, to oppose the world system with God's entertainment, with God's education, and with God's social ability and skills. So it's not about what the pleasure of the wicked is. It is for God's pleasure, first of all, and then second of all, God gives it to my pleasure also. So that's what worship is, worshipping God in spirit and in truth. So I have a test here which goes through this test. Oh, where did I put it? I put it in a file because I have so many different files here that are multicolored. And I've recently put it away. Oh, there it is. I see it. It's a red one. It's a red folder. Which tests, it's written out. I've written it when I did have a computer. Oh my God, help me. Oh, here we go. I've lost. So I've written it out, all the tests of the Holy Spirit, and so which means counselling. It means counselling. So God does the counselling. There's also the secular world that does the counselling. And there's also the Bible that talks about the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit in the Bible. And so let's have a look at the fruit of the Spirit here. Fruit of the Spirit. Which the devil has destroyed. So you have the foundation, the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness, the faithful loyalty, the gentleness, the self-control, and the love of your enemies. And so all of these are the fruits of the Spirit. But God, again, where the Christians get this wrong, which I'm correcting, is also the other type of the fruit of the Spirit is correcting. The Bible is there to correct you when you've made a mistake. And God's authority, and that is love the enemies to what you're capable of, not what you're not capable of. Limit it, because if you don't limit the love of your enemies, God limited it 77 times 7, which is approximately 3.5 into the basic tens, 2,000 into the advanced thousands. So it's your number, it's your choice, it's your free will. How many times are you going to turn the cheek? How many times are you going to allow the enemy to lord over you and to offend you where you have no defense and you're not allowed to be offended and you're not allowed to have defense? How many times are you going to do that? How many times are you going to let the enemy insult your intelligence, invade you, have sex on your bathroom floor, put poison in your bathroom doors, put death through your bathroom window and through your bathroom walls and kitchen and every room? How many times have I done that, allowed the enemy to get away with their crimes? Many times. I've endured evil. So that's the fruit of the Spirit. Endurance of evil. But if I've come to my limit, end of my tether, you've tested the patience of a saint, then that's it. God then intervenes to fight those who fight me, to curse those who have cursed me. And I believe in that. So there's a balance in that. There's a balance of power. There is damage control. The New Testament is relevant as much as the Old Testament is relevant, where God says an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It's God's vengeance. And when God says, I will fight those who fight you. So we have to look at both sides to balance things, not be tunnel vision, not make judgments based on black and white and see no color. And also not to be a chameleon, to change your color all the time. In 1 second, in 1 minute, which is a demonic type of changing colors, not being true to your own colors. You can change colors. I do change my clothes and the color of my clothes, but not every minute, not being unreasonable. I change my clothes as often as I can. And I don't wear underwear while I have a severe infection due to a moldy and rotten shower, which had been organized crime disguised as accidental, disguised as many years of wear and tear, many years of usage, rubbish, or it being old, out of sell-by-date. No, the fact is it's cheap and nasty, first of all. Second of all, it was never properly installed, poor workmanship. Truth, gold. So it's the lie versus the truth battle that I have with my landlord and their workers that have organized this crime under the disguise of accidental damage, accidental abandonment and neglect, accidental everything, which is my father's curse. So they're worse than gypsies, the scumbags. They're worse than gypsies, these white supremacists. They're 10 times worse than gypsies. Even a gypsy would give someone who was starving or someone who was suffering help. But this white scumbag, they won't do that. They are too self-important. They're overvalued, particularly the celebrities. They could be a white or black supremacist who is 10 times worse than a gypsy. Many Africans, many English, and many Indian, many Pakistanis, many Asians, they're worse. The English, the white scum, is worse, and the black scum is worse than a gypsy. And that's saying something. So you've got the gypsy, who is the lowest of the low, and the bad Jew, who is the lowest of the low. In other words, they have no moral compass. They're totally immoral. The worst type of prostitute, let's put it that way, compared to all the other races who are worse than the gypsy in their superiority and a bad type of supremacist, whereas Christ is the good type of supremacist. So this is why I've explained my hate for evil in this video for Christmas coming. So last Christmas, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, I said, God, in crying my eyes out, the Bible means the opposite for strangers. And strangers, it doesn't mean the exact, except for the year to come, which is 2026, because I believe that God heard my prayer and seen my tears through Christ and has granted me my wishes and feelings against the devil, who has done this so that every time I encounter a stranger and I want to pray again without them agreeing to the prayer, it becomes evil and sinful on my behalf to pray for someone without their agreement. The Bible gives us a law and the rules to keep, where 1 or 2 get together in my name, in agreement, I am there in their midst. So this agreement has to take place before praying for one another. So I'm not allowed to pray, and the Bible is not allowed to be exact for a stranger who is not in agreement with me. And I was crying my eyes out and I was saying, oh, I said, God, why do I have to agree? I want to rule and dominate the sinner. I want to rule and dominate the stranger. I don't need their agreement. I don't need I don't need their permission. And I was crying my eyes out, God, I don't need them to control me. I need to control them. And I said, God, please change this, rearrange it. God, for me, for my sake. And I cried on social media. And then you got this other authorities who came around and copied my tears in the parliament, whose name I don't want to mention. They copied my tears. And so everything that I did, they impersonated, not for God, they impersonated it for the devil. And I said, God, I'm sick and tired for 20 years of decades of having the sinner and the enemy and the stranger rule and control over me. I don't want the Bible, for my sake, not for their sake, to mean the opposite. I want it to mean exact. So I prayed and I cried my eyes out, and I prayed and prayed and cried my eyes out. Please, God, change it. Please, God, authorize it. Please, God, equip me. Please, God, help me. And I pleaded and I begged and I pleaded, love me, love me, love me, love me. And the song goes, is it Gaga that sings that? And so I did. And I believe God answered my prayers because I want the Bible to mean the exact of what it says without their consent, without their agreement. So does that mean I have changed God's rule? No. It does not mean I've changed God's rules. God's universal rule, where one or two get together in agreement, there I am in their midst. God's rule still remains the same for other people. But I'm not the other people. So I've been a friend to God for many years, and God has been a friend to me for many years. I have not asked God's rules to be changed and rearranged for my sake. What I have asked is, no, for other people's sakes, I meant to say. What I have asked is that God changes and rearranges God's rules for my sake, but not change it for other people's sake. Because I have asked God's rules to change for my sake, not for other people's sake, and believing that God, it will allow it to happen for my sake, so that when I read a Bible asking God about a stranger or an enemy, it means exactly as it says, not the opposite. Because I was outraged. I was saying I was really angry, and then my anger diminished into nothing. I wasn't allowed to be angry in God's presence. I could only cry my eyes out in God's presence and say, God, this is so unfair that I should have a stranger or an enemy lord and rule over me, because, or molest me sexually, or rob and rape me without any consequences. And so this is why I cried. So God made me a professional. God gave me a new authority through Christ to make an exception for me. But that's for me. It's not for others. It's not for other people. So other people, if they pray the same prayer as I pray and they impersonate me, it's not going to work, because they haven't suffered what I have suffered. That means 20 years, decades, nearly all my life, having the enemy have the first word and the last word through a corrupt authority. And so I have my answer here. I said, oh no, I'm getting an Indian GP. God, you know how much they get on my nerves, the majority of them. And I was wrong in saying that, because I'm not going to take a statistic. I'm not going to take a censorship with a number that cannot be counted. And I don't want to sin in that way. And I said, God, I am sorry for making that mistake. I can't say the majority or minority, because you really know you are going to study people's hearts a lot more than I am, though you've given me that authority, though you've given me that professionalism in my faith. You've given me that skill through the Spirit to respectfully be similar, not the same as you, in the way that you are going to look at all the people's hearts. You search the hearts. And you are the happiest, more happy than I am. And you enable an adult, a young adult, middle-aged adult, and older adults to come to your presence and praise you, according to the Bible, and be born again as a type of a baby. So there is a bad type of baby, which is a curse. There's also a good type of baby, which is a cure in every age, being born again in the spirit. So I'm now 50 minutes into this video. So then God answered my question, should I keep the doctor or remove it? Ask for a woman doctor, don't have a man doctor. What do I do? Because they make my skin crawl, they make me cringe. Oh, I love this smell. Oh, I love this smell which heals cuts and bruises. It's a disinfect. Well, it helps a lot. And yeah. And so I said, should I change the doctor and ask for a female? But if I need my body examined, I always ask the man doctor to exit, to leave. So it's only the woman doctor. They have more staff in that building, more doctors in that building. And I think that I also have more options in that building for the hospitals in the UK, which is giving me more control of my NHS records rather than the other doctor surgery where I was at. And the answer came along. It says that my daughter, who had an Indian boyfriend that I believe was a setup, she is independent. She is having God's mercy, so that means she's not going to be executed, or she's not going to have a death sentence. She's not going to have the type of a curse that is a curse of destruction and death, which Jacob did have, and I had. She's not going to have that. God says God's going to have mercy on her, but she's going to be very much disciplined for her sins and rebellion. And so I was very surprised and very, very much relieved to know I can keep this Indian doctor, or Pakistani, or whatever he is, Arab. He has a Muslim name. I can keep him. But that's not the case for all Muslims. But God can make it the case for all Muslims. You see, God is in control of that number, not human beings. So when I say all or half, I have to be careful, because God ultimately controls the all or half or any number that cannot be counted. And so that's a relief to know. In God's mercy and Jesus, Yeshua, for India, Arabs, Asians, but he's not. I think he sounds like I don't think he is Muslim. I think he may be. I don't know. It wasn't Muhammad, but it sounded like an Arab type. And I find them irritating, because they generally, if I can't say all, can't say majority, the stereotype is that they don't like Christians and our freedom. And so I became very happy knowing that my daughter does not have a death sentence on her, knowing that God will discipline her, knowing that God, Father Christmas, he says he remembers Jesus being, as a baby, he was wrapped in clothes, laying in the manger. And then suddenly heaven came and angels came with the new name that angels gave Jesus, Joshua, and praising him. God is the happiest and the highest authority, and God is going to give us peace and favor for all. It doesn't say all, it says us, or humankind, favor, as much as flavor, of peace, rest, happiness, and authority. So highest has two meanings, authority and happiness. So that's where happiness comes from. Not because I'm blessing myself through soul searching. I'm being blessed by God and God's mercy on my one and only daughter. To discipline her when I can't discipline her, when I humanly cannot make it possible to do so, God, as my husband of abused woman in Isaiah 54, can do so. And so that's so amazing to me. And then God also revealed to me where the devil is when it comes to man. So you have the look-alike spiritually, someone who I have subscribed to who looks similar to me spiritually, but not physically. He has blue eyes. I don't have blue eyes. He looks spiritually similar to me, and my past is of the devil. But again, God is showing him mercy to remind me what it means to forgive a humble sinner. That's why he's there. And then there's another man who is nocturnal to remind me that he has to remain nocturnal in order for God's light to shine in the darkness and to find that peace and escape from the shadow of death. And then there is another man where God is looking at the rising of the sun or the moon or the heavenly bodies, stars, moon, sun, particularly the rising of the sun worshippers and the blonde bimbos who are, or any hippie type, because of God's tender loving mercy from all the heavenly bodies. But again, I'm using the word all. It says from heaven. So God is focusing on the sun because it is those men who love the blondes versus those men who hate the blondes. Because it is demonic, they've associated her, golden hair and yellow hair, to the sun. But God says to the rising of the sun, which is a different color. It's not yellow, it's not golden. The setting of the sun can be golden, yellow, and orange. It's the rising of the sun, the dawn. And so he is symbolic to the father and the child. The other one's symbolic to knowing what the enemy's up to. and the other one is symbolic to my past. And one of which is of the devil, who has not yet, or who is in the process of being humbled. So the look